Hi there, and welcome to the first presentation in our series on eating plans. And today we're quickly going to discuss the Dr. Melvin Page Phase 2 eating plan for balancing blood chemistry. I was brought into contact with the Melvin Page eating plan while visiting some good friends of mine in the United States last year, and John and Antoinette Dinkelman from the Dinkelman Health Center basically introduced the Page diet to me. The Page diet is a Mediterranean diet, and basically it is based on cutting out all carbohydrates, eating protein, green vegetables, and in correct food combination. So please allow me some time just to quickly run through the Page diet with you and just explain it to you in a little bit more detail. It is one of the diet or eating plans that I use in my practice, and as we saw from the previous discussion on dress, diet or eating plans, lifestyle eating plans is the first and most important step, because I think 80% of weight loss and health is related to eating correctly. So let's quickly start running through the Melvin Page diet. So the first question we have to ask is, who was Dr. Melvin Page? And Dr. Melvin Page was one of the early pioneers in nutritional biochemistry. He's got a very interesting history, is that he qualified with a doctorate in dental surgery from the University of Michigan, and he invented dentures that was based on engineering principles. But he found that he had to remake the dentures every few years, and the reason for this being that the bones underneath the dentures would resorb. And basically, it's a common problem that to this day still exists, and it's caused by inadequate nutrition, caused by the overconsumption of refined carbohydrates and white sugar. And we'll look in the next slide why this happens. So in his quest to find out a little bit more, he started studying the work of Dr. Weston Price, and we will look at it a little bit later in this presentation, just quickly at Dr. Weston Price's work. And Dr. Weston Price was also called the Charles Darwin of nutrition, because he studied primitive people. He took his research outside the lab. But Dr. Price decided to run blood chemistries, and he found that because of the white sugar and refined carbohydrates, it increased the serum calcium. And what happens is that the calcium is then drawn from bone tissue, and that's why the mandibles, the jawbones, resorbed, and is then carried in the serum. And and this causes a whole host of problems. Obviously, it weakens the bones because the calcium is pulled out of the matrix. But with the increased serum calcium, you also have an increase in kidney stones and hardening of arteries and all sorts of problems, because the calcium that gets carried in the serum gets laid down in all sorts of places in the body where you don't want it. Well, Dr. Melvin Page from this developed a treatment, and his philosophy was very simple and logical. The first thing he said is that the harmful effects of the use of white sugar and refined carbohydrates can't be ignored, and that's one of the first or the major principles of his eating plan, is that he recommended we cut out white sugars and refined carbohydrates, actually all grains and starches, from the diet. Second thing he said is that there's a huge harmful effect of using chemical additives and other food preservatives, and we've discussed it in dress. The previous presentation I did is that we should shop the perimeter of our food stores, because everything in the middle is laden with chemical additives and other food preservatives, and these have a huge impact on the body chemistry, as our body is not used to these chemical additives and preservatives, and it causes a whole host of problems. So when we eat, try and eat real food. The third thing he said is that sometimes it's very important to use whole food vitamin concentrates, minerals, and digestive enzymes to supplement daily food intake. And I agree with him. The last step in the DRESS program is supplementation, and it's very important to note here whole food vitamin concentrates, minerals, and digestive enzymes, because there's a huge difference between whole food vitamin concentrates, minerals, and digestive enzymes, and chemically produced in the lab. So we'll spend some time on that in a later presentation, just to explain this to you a little bit better. And then the fourth thing is, he said that milk is not a perfect food for everyone. Dr. Weston Price promulgated the use of raw milk in the diet, but Dr. Page found that milk is not a perfect food for everyone, and I do find that some people are lactose intolerant, and that there's all sorts of problems with milk if you cannot find raw milk to use. So I would rather recommend that you stay away from milk products, but it is in the Page diet, and we will look at it a little bit later. So Dr. Page food plan, it was not developed as a diet as such, but it was created to help balance the blood chemistry. And basically, he developed his food plan on the glycemic index. And one of the things, like I said before, that he encouraged was that you cut all grains, carbohydrates, and white sugar out of the diet, and then he promulgated also the use of huge quantities or unlimited quantities of green leafy vegetables. Just quickly, to have a quick look at Dr. Weston Price, he's basically the gentleman that sparked Dr. Page's work. Like I said, he was also called the Charles Darwin of nutrition. He basically found that there was a huge degeneration, dental decay of teeth, and he started looking for reasons why. And like I said, he, unlike Dr. Page, took his research outside the lab and toured the world, looking at isolated groups of people and looking what they ate, and found that our modern diet has got a huge impact on our health. Well, let's jump right into the Page diet and the most important steps. Firstly, the most important step, like I said before, is to remove all pasta, breads and cereals, all flour products, all grains, and rice included in that should be removed from your diet. Second step is to consume protein 3 times a day, and included here is lean meat, fish, fowl and eggs. And as far as possible, try to ensure that the protein you consume is grass-fed and free range. Third step, please increase the intake of your green vegetables, and please try as far as possible to ensure that the vegetables you consume are organic. In saying that, please do not let the absence of grass-fed, free-range organic produce stop you from following the plan, because consuming protein and vegetables is far better than having a lot of grain products. You will see in this diet that there is no limit on the serving size of lean meat, fish, fowl, eggs or vegetables, but please, as per usual, let common sense prevail. Food eaten closest to their raw state have the best digestive enzyme ability. So with your vegetables, and the green vegetables especially, I recommend that you eat as much raw food as possible, a lot of salads. Fluid intake should be no longer than an hour before and further than 2 hours after a meal. And the reason for this is that taking a lot of fluid with a meal dilutes the digestive enzymes and it inhibits your digestive process. So please try not to take a lot of fluids with your meals. You can see here the fluid intake with a meal, no more than half a cup. And then remember that we still need a lot of water during the day, so we should drink at least half a cup of water every half an hour during the day, but please just not with meals. Then what's also very important before we jump into the first slide on different categories of food that we eat on the Page eating plan, that one of the other main principles of the Page diet was that he promulgated food combinations. So there's certain foods that gets digested better if eaten together, and we'll look at food combining a little bit later. So the first category of food that he said we should eat is vegetables and grains, and these vegetables are high carbohydrate vegetables and low glycemic grains. So the vegetables here, 12 to 21% carbohydrates, and the low glycemic grains you see limited at 2 to 3 times per week. Just notice also on the slide the A, because the categories or the columns is important later when we look at the combinations of food and how we put the foods together. You'll see here that boiled potatoes are on the list, limited to 2 to 3 times a week. And boiled potatoes, because boiling the potato helps to get rid of some of the starch, the carbohydrates in it. You'll see chickpeas, peas, kidney beans, lima beans, lentils, sprouted seeds, sunflower seeds, quinoa, sprouted grains, and wild rice in column A. Column B, once again vegetables. You can see the carbohydrate content is a lot lower, and you'll notice here that it is unlimited amounts of everything in here. Once again, just take a note of the boiled sweet potato, because once again, by boiling the sweet potato, we're getting rid of some of the excess starch, and these are the vegetables in column B. Once again, remember the column is very important when we get to the stage where we do the food combining. So this is basically an overview of the vegetables and grains in column A, and the two columns B. The first column B is the vegetables with 3% carbohydrates, and the second column 6 to 9. But once again, just want to say that unlimited amounts. Everything in column A, no more than 2 to 3 times a week. If you're very serious about weight loss, I would recommend that you rather cut out column A completely. Because the carbohydrates and the low glycemic, although it's low glycemic grains, will still cause you to gain weight. I will try and make this available as a PDF download from my site. Okay, column C. Column C is all the proteins, and you see that you recommended we take protein 3 times a day. Meat, fish, fowl, and eggs, but very important, he said that we should not eat any pork. Then column D is the fruits, maximum 2 fruits per day, and the fruits that he recommended was apples, pears, oranges, peaches, grapes, and all the berries. And the reason for this being is that with the modern production techniques, there's a lack of minerals in the ground. And what then happens is that the sugars that get formed in the fruits are out of proportion. So we have a lot of fructose and very little glucose, and fructose cannot be utilized in the body and it gets stored. So important to try and minimize fruit intake. Once again, like I said, a lot of sugar in there. So if you're serious about weight loss, once again, I would rather just cut out the fruits. But I do discuss the fruits because it wasn't the original page diet. Then in the miscellaneous category, you'll see that everything in miscellaneous is slightly restricted. And in this category, there is jerky or biltong, unsalted butter, very important to look at, get unsalted butter. Cottage cheese, then you can use some white cheese as garnish or flavoring. Kefir is there, milk, but you'll see raw milk. Raw nuts, but please, no peanuts. Olive oil, sesame oil, walnut oil. If you want to make a dressing for your salad, please make your own by using any of the above oils mixed with balsamic vinegar and herbs. And then very important, I recommend that you get in at least half a teaspoon of salt a day, but very specific. It should be Celtic salt or Himalayan salt. I do prefer or recommend the Celtic salt, and I will make a link available on my site where you can find Celtic salt. By taking some salt, it helps to balance the sodium potassium levels in your body. And I find that a lot of people that's dehydrated is actually due to a lack of salt and not due to not drinking enough water. Then the beverages that's allowed. Water, spring or filtered, and we already said that you should have at least half a cup of water every half an hour during the day. Also, you can have some herbal teas, chicken broth, beef broth is allowed. And then if you want to have some alcohol or red wine, but dry red wine, 2 glasses per day maximum. Well, this is just a summary of column C, column D, and then the miscellaneous foodstuffs and the beverages. The next step is to just quickly look at the combination of the different columns or the different foodstuffs in the body to optimize your digestive tract or the digestion of the foodstuffs. Well, Dr. Page said that food combining is as important as eating the right foods, and what he said is that you should never combine column C and column A. Now, column C is the proteins, and column A is the high carbohydrate vegetables and the low glycemic grains. So this is typical of the typical South African diet or this typical American diet, and I always refer to it as the SAD diet. The SAD, typical South African diet. Basically, this is how we grew up and how we always ate. We had some potatoes and meat or rice and meat. And your body cannot absorb and digest the food very well if you eat these two together. So at no time, never ever, please do not combine the high carbohydrate vegetables and the low glycemic grains with protein. Another one that's a bit of a problem, and I've mentioned it before, is that you should never eat fruits with anything else. I normally recommend eating it at least 1 hour before or after a meal. That's a recommendation from Dr. Page, and please try and stick to that. Well, you can see that it's safe to have all the vegetables and the low glycemic grains that are allowed together. So you can have vegetables and glycemic grains out of column B, and you can combine it with the vegetables in column B. You can have the animal proteins and combine it with the low carbohydrate vegetables. So just to go through it again, and this now refers back to the headings and the columns of the different foodstuffs. So A and B is a good combination. So A is the low glycemic grains and the high carbohydrate vegetables. B is the low carbohydrate vegetables. You'll see that B and C is a good combination, so the low carbohydrate vegetables with the proteins. A and C, so once again, the high carbohydrate vegetables and the low glycemic grains, not a good combination. It should never be eaten with the proteins. And remember, D, the fruits. Always eat the fruits by themselves. Well, this is the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, there is a show on SlideShare, also on my website, and I will make the food chart or the food matrix available as a download from PDF. I would just like to give some acknowledgement and some resources. Well, none of us know everything, and we learn from people as we go. So I would just like to give some acknowledgement to the International Foundation for Nutritional Health, and you can visit those links for more info on Dr. Page and Dr. Price. There's also a link to the International Foundation for Nutritional Health. And then I would like to thank my friends at the Dinkelman Health Center. There's their website. If you live in the States and you ever need health advice or help with your nutrition or hair mineral analysis, please contact the Dinkelman Health Center. They're highly knowledgeable and superb people. Then also you can go and have a look at the Western A. Price Foundation if you want to know more about Dr. Price's work. What can you do with this presentation? You have unlimited rights to reprint, republish, distribute, and copy the presentation in any form. The only condition is that you may not alter it in any way or charge money for it. I hope you enjoy it.